Hello, hello. If you can please grab a seat, we're going to get started. Is it? Oh, that might. Is this better? Better? Yeah? Is this much better? Yes? No? Hello? Is that better? Okay. I can't hear myself too much. Anyway, this is our agenda. We're going to start now. We're a couple of minutes late with Sarvani. And she's going to talk about breaking the code barrier and just rethinking frontend and backend synergy. Then we have Svitlana. I think this one is a very interesting one about project management in AI, which is you haven't heard about AI probably, but you know. And then we'll have Archana. She has to join us online because she couldn't get her visa sorted to come today. So we'll get her a little bit later. Just really quickly, this is the GDG Dublin team. Myself, I work here in Workday. I've been doing community for a couple of years now. I'm a organizer at Kodu as well. We have Henna. I don't know if you've seen her. Suhani is in India, so she's not here today. And Aldan, he's been around here too. You can talk to us later. You know, if you just want to get to know us or what we have planned for the rest of the year for GDG. And again, thank you Workday to having us today. It's always wonderful to get the space. If they are hiring at the moment mostly AI roles, as you know. So if you want, you can find the roles there, or if you want, just talk to me and I can refer you. If there's any roles that you're interested, you send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to. And if you need any help or anything to apply, just let me know. And also, if you want this slide later, also ask me for it and I can share it with you. Just find me on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to share there. I wanted to share this event as well that I'm helping organizing with Kodu. It's going to be an online event, used to be in person, but now we're doing it online. So it'll be 2 tracks and workshops, and it will be on the 9th of May. So if you want to join, just there's the QR code. It will be free. We have a really good speakers lineup. So yeah, you have questions, you can ask me or later. And yeah, without further ado, Sarvani. Also, if it's okay, we'll keep questions for the end. Okay, thank you.
Hello everyone, a warm evening. Before even starting, I would like to appreciate the amazing community that we have today, brought together by GDG Dublin Group. And I would also like to give a quick shout out to the organizers that have conducted this amazing event. Celebration of women in tech is something that we have to be proud about each and every day. Time and again, we have proven that when women involved in tech, innovation, and collaboration, amazing things happen. We try to connect, reconciliate, and bridge the gap between, like the one that we are going to discuss today, breaking the code barrier, rethinking the front and back end synergy. Before even starting, I would like to give you a quick intro of myself. I am Sarvani Harshita, striving hard to lead the projects at Quantum Data Labs. I've started my career as a JavaScript developer and made it into full stack. Currently, I am leading a fintech and healthcare services. With that, let's get started. How many of you guys are working for front end? Quite a few, yeah. How many of you are working for backend? Yeah. Okay. So today's topic is going to linger all between these two topics. So I know a lot of people have varied experiences and expertise. So I'll try to keep this session as generic as possible. With that, let's get started. Imagine that you have created a pixel perfect UI that stakeholders and end users are going to love. But there's a tiny bit problem. Backend is not ready yet. What do we do? Generally, we have, give me just a second, sorry for that. So what do we do? Generally, we deal this in three different situations. Wait for the backend to complete, delays. Two, mock the API and pray that it actually works. Too risky. Third, rush the backend into completing the development. Complete chaos. Never ever do that. So with this in place, so how do we even overcome all these things? Before starting that, I would like to start with a quick stats. According to the Stack Overflow survey, 58% of the times project delays are due to front-end back-end misalignments, and 40% of the times projects fail due to teams aligned to fail to align these API contracts. Imagine the revenue productivity loss each and every day. Today we are going to talk about few of the game-changing strategies to break their barriers and align with these misalignments. Starting with micro-frontends for mobility and giving the architectures. Second, AI-powered middlewares. With these middlewares, now we can have or break the bridge between front end and back end much easily. Third, edge computing. With this edge computing, now the computation is much faster and easier. Serverless AI. With serverless AI, all the decisions will be taken for you for the infrastructure and things like that. We'll dive deeper. We'll dive deeper into each of these subtopics. First, traditionally, in large companies or even large projects, front end is one big monolithic, meaning the entire code base is compiled into one large database, making it cumbersome and even small change feel like an open heart surgery. Tedious, nerve-wracking, and time-consuming. If we could bring microservices, a familiar concept used in backends, to use it in the front ends? Now, small independent code can be used for each and every dedicated teams for them to be working on. With that in place, let me give you a few tools that really help with these micro front ends. NX. NX is an open source tool that are used in monorepos and micro front ends for even dedicating the front-end architectures. Let's say you are working on a particular project with e-commerce website, let's say. You have search bar, you have nav bar, sidebar, etc. So far and so forth. With NX in place, now dedicated teams could work on their independent stacks like React, Angular, Vue, picking their own libraries and whatever things they wanted to work on. Now the builds are even slimmer and easier to maintain. Let me give you a real-time example. IKEA. IKEA uses these annex into their front-end architectures, making the code builds much easier and simpler. With that in place, now the bottlenecks are very less, and then the complex dependencies have been come down. And sorry. And with that, with these changes, now we have faster build releases and things like that for us to benefit from these micro front ends. With that in place, let's move on to our next pain point, rather friction point. That is front end, back end misalignments. Front end teams, how many times have you felt that you have to redo the UI only because there is a contract change in the API? backend developers, how many times have you changed the API structures just because there's a business logic change and you have broke the UI unintentionally? Frustrating? Yeah. Why do you think these changes actually happen? Why do you think front ends actually break? It's due to the static API contracts. What if there is these contracts dynamically get generated? So introducing you to AI powered API middlewares. These AI middlewares actually use machine learning for actually so these AI middlewares use machine learning for generating the contracts on the fly. Now front-end developers can actually leverage these mocks and start developing on the fly without even waiting for the API developers. Second, how does this actually work? So I'll explain it to you in 3 simple steps. One, auto generation of specs. So with the use of machine learning, front-end developers could give a prompt to tools like Postman, Swagger AI, and Swagger AI, making them give like a reliable mocks now so that front-end developers can use it in their development phase. Real-time change detection. So if there is any change or breakage in these API contracts, the front-end teams could easily get notified, and sometimes they even can use these AI middlewares to change the front-end calls in real time before even deploying into things. So it is much easier to use and less prone to errors. Third, smart API and mocking. With these AI middlewares in place, once the API grows into new endpoints, AI automatically generates these kinds of documentation and give you the marks so that front-end developers can have a big intervention to whatever they have currently working on. Let me give you a real-time example. Stripe. Stripe uses this AI-powered middlewares into their architectures. Now, the API system automatically detects these changes in real time, and so that the vast network of front-end need not be affected with this. Front-end developers at Stripe now can happily rely on APIs at Stripe. It's guaranteed. With AI-powered middleware, it's just not a technology. It's the way you foster front-end, back-end development together. So if with this bridge in place, now we can have the friction point as a thing in the past. Let's move on to another point. Now that you have optimized the front end and have all the good things from reducing the friction of front end and back end, let's move on to another pain point. That is, have you ever felt a website almost running instantaneously, using all the resources and giving you responses immediately? Chances are it is using edge computing. So what is edge computing? In simple terms, edge computing is running the computational logic very near to the user, physically, geographically, very closer to the user. Instead of running the request halfway across the globe, now users can request to the server which is very near to the users. And let me give you a small example. It's like having a coffee shop at each end of the street. Now, the users need not drive downtown in order to get it. It's like with no delays, and it is easily available. Let me give you 3 advantages of using this edge computing. Reduced backend load. Offloading these projects to edge nodes, now backend will have very less requests from the users. So freeing up all the resources that are required. Eliminated latencies. As I've mentioned before, with all these servers in front of you, so even one server crashes, you'll be able to receive the responses within no time. 3, enhanced user experiences. With combination of reduced load to backend and eliminated latencies, user will able to get all the rich user interfaces each and every time, even when there is low bandwidth. Companies like Netflix uses these edge computing extensively, making their making their recommendations for users. It even catches the images, recommendations, and in real time. So even Spotify uses these playlist recommendations based on the geolocation. Let's hold on to the thought and move on to the next point. That is serverless. Imagine a scenario that your website got viral overnight. Exciting. So the next immediate thought is: are the servers available? Are the like load balancing done properly? Is the users able to use the resources? Are they even available? What if all this infrastructure is done for you without even you lifting a finger, introducing you to serverless serverless with AI? Serverless doesn't mean it doesn't have any server. It means that all the infrastructure changes are done for you. All the scaling is done for you. With AI in place, these changes are even done with the right decision. What, when, where, how? All these decisions are done for you. Now you could even innovate all your code changes without even thinking. The AI will dynamically scale up or scale down the infrastructures in the real time. Let me give you 3 advantages of it. Auto scaling. As you all know that using serverless scales up or scales down based on the rules that you have given. So that is a big advantage there. Using AI-driven decision making. So using AI uses machine learning to calculate the request that you have on the fly and increases the infrastructure or even reduces it. With this AI in place, you also have reduced cost and complexities because users need not have manual intervention for this to happen. AI automatically detects it and then makes the changes for you. With that in place, now that you have edge computing with the incredible speed and the scaling of serverless with AI, you have a powerful formula for creating scalable and lightning fast intelligent user experiences, truly bridging the gap between front-end responsibilities and back-end seamlessly. Platforms like Cloudflare Worker AI and Fastly Compute at Edge lets you run the code intelligently at edge. For instance, Cloudflare Workers AI personally changes the website recommendations to the users at the real time. Companies like Spotify and Canva use this to leverage dynamically and personalize the content for millions of users. And these aren't just futuristic ideas. These are some practical tools for you to do hands-on and get your hands dirty. And now with all this in place, I would like to conclude by saying that using these, we try to bridge the gap between the front end and back end, breaking a long-lasting gap between front end and back end for you to, leverage these tools. I'll tell you my personal example. So at my start of my career, there was a project which is really impossible to close. So I was working for a front-end team which was using seamlessly dynamic UI, and there was backend which is strong too. But as the development grew, the deviations got bigger and bigger. There were a lot of misalignments and there was a lot of back and forth of changes. We even had ad hoc changes at the end of the deployment. Then something clicked. We did not even understand why these problems are really occurring. We stopped thinking as two different teams and started working as full stack. Once this happened, we were able to leverage all the good from the front-end architectures and back-end architectures as well. With that in place, we also try to bridge the gap between the front-end and back-end using few of the tools that I have told earlier. So we were able to complete these projects even before the deadline. And that's what we have clearly, discussed today all about. So we try to use front-end architectures like microservices using tools like NX into micro frontends for better architectures. And we can even reduce the bottlenecks and complex dependencies using AI-powered API middlewares. And also moving on with the fast-paced responses and intelligently adapting infrastructure using edge computing and serverless AI. And also, I would like to say that we can easily break the barrier by, starting small, like include few minor bits into your projects instead of directly leveraging all the tools at once. Try to track your impact points. How are you doing? Is it really working for your project and things like that? Once that is done, gradually increase them to like using multiple concepts into your front ends. Once that is done, redefine whatever which is possible for you. Technologies evolve, tools evolve, but what stays constant is great products have been built by great teams in sync. So with that in place, let's try to redefine what's possible together. Thank you.
Great. So, well, thanks a lot for a fantastic talk. If we can take some questions before, we'll do them at the end. Okay. Or we will take them now. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hand and I'll go to you and I'll give you the mic so we can all hear.
Yeah.
Questions? Someone? Oh, we have a question. Great.
Thank you very much for your great talk. I would like to ask if you would have to do one thing, first thing to, improve this connection between front end and backend that you were talking about. What would you do? Thank you.
So initially, to definitely, decrease the gap, I would be start using this AI powered API tool. So using Swagger AI, we have different, libraries that are available with OpenAI and Swagger. So you have Swagger UI, Swagger Editor, Swagger Code Gen. So using all these tools, we could definitely automatically generate the codes, even documentations. It is easier even for a person who doesn't even know the code or he wants to switch from one language to another language. Using Swagger AI is really easy for them to utilize. I think you could start from there. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
But
Thanks.
I have a question that, do you think that Gen AI can help us to minimize this difference? And if yes, then do you think that there would be a need for front-end or back-end developers?
Sure, I understand the question. So really, if see, these tools will definitely reduce the time to development. Let's say I'm a person who doesn't have any knowledge on JavaScript or any front end tools for that matter. So it's easier for me to use these Gen AI tools to like develop the code, and it's very easy. But once these things start to break, you really have to have an idea how it actually works. So you should have an expertise in making these things. These things are rigid in a way. So the UI isn't like too great. The CSS weren't great. It's not like screen friendly. It's very rigid to one particular screen. The UI isn't really user friendly. The experience isn't great. But for a person who doesn't have any experience, can definitely leverages this. But I don't think there's a stop to front-end developers as you've asked, but it's easier for you to use these things. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, maybe we can take a last question and then we. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. It was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Well, the question is that the backend programming which is done and the front end, after using AI, what time consumption is there in that? And before using AI, what was the time consumption? Like particularly, let's say, for example, you take a project, like any project, whichever you choose. And let's compare the time before the AI and after the AI.
For me, before even answering, for me, it's not even the time. For me, it's the bridge that is happening. Let's say you start a development and then you tend to change the contracts in any way. That's because that's the only way you communicate between front end and back end, right? So once this actually happens, UI completely breaks, even if there is a structure change or even if there's a field name change, everything. So for me, the main point seems to be the way you use these things. For me particularly, I didn't find lot of time difference. But then, you mean for the development or is it for the? Uh, So if everything works fine, I could easily develop a code in 2 hours or something like that. But for me to manually write it will take 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks generally. So it's definitely I'll recommend using these AI tools. But then what if something breaks? I don't know. I don't really know how to fix it. There's no ecosystem there. So a lot of developers doesn't even know where to go and ask. Even ChatGPT says it works in my machine, the classic statement. So if everything works fine, it's good. But if something breaks, I don't think it'll take longer time to develop than manually writing the code. True. Yeah, happened with me as well. I think a lot of us even experienced that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarvani.
Thank you for having me today.
Introduce you. Are you sure? Let me just do this real quick. I'm just gonna put your picture there so everyone can see you if this wants to work. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, now we're gonna have Svetlana talk about project management in AI. So round of applause. If you can just share your screen.
No, but to click.
Oh yes. You can start sharing your screen if you like. I'll make sure this is working.
And clear. Thank you very much. Chaos, confusion, constant change. If you ever worked on technical project, or maybe you did same as me, you managed it, you know what I'm talking about. One day you are just sprinting towards deadline. You know what to expect. Another day, surprise, some blocker, some change, maybe new requirements, and you are not able now to identify your deadline. Priorities shift, blockers appear, your entire sprint plan, if you're working, of course, in Scrum, it just tossed out the window. As a technical project manager, I was living like this. I breathed it, I breathed this chaos. And for some time, I thought that is how it's supposed to be. But it's not. Now we have some tools that can help us. And now we have tools that can help not only to manage chaos, they can help us to prevent it, they can help us to predict it, and even to redefine it. Hello, everyone. My name is Svetlana Samko, or Lana. I am Senior Technical Project Manager in Verizon Connect. I have also 18 years of experience in IT, worked as tester, developer, and worked in 3 different countries. Also president of Toastmasters in EMEA Verizon Connect, and also professional mentor, helping people to get into IT if they have experience or don't have experience, depends on the situation. If you want, please connect me and just let's stay in touch. I want to talk to you about project management and AI tools in project management because I am project manager currently, right? And at the moment, there is project management problem in tech that was always there, right? We always had the problem with complex project, with distributing teams after COVID started, and even sometimes before for some people, over the world, really. Not only in Ireland, India, Spain, Ukraine, and other countries, but all over the world. We have microservices now, and we are talking about them now. We have overlapping roles. Some people and some roles are not anymore working in the company, and we need to combine them. You can see it in your company sometimes. We have unpredictable timelines. All the time we need to be on the deadline. Scope creeps, bugs, everything you can see, and changing stakeholders' demands. And we can see inefficiency, too many tools. How many AI tools do you know? A lot. Do you need all of them? No. So we need clarity, and we don't have enough clarity. At the same time, AI helps, right? It's not against the human, it's for human. It's all for our better job and to remove some tasks that we don't need to do anymore, but to automate some repetitive tasks, analyze some massive amount of data, and use them for our benefit. As project manager, I need to forecast risks. I need to understand when the risks appeared and what to do with them. And of course, it's good to have some personal recommendation based on some performance trends for the clients, for the customers, what is happening on the market, and so on. It helps us to stop guessing and start knowing. I will start with Jira. Who worked with Jira? Please raise your hand. Yeah, almost everyone who was working in tech company worked with Jira at least once. But do you know that Jira has Jira AI? This is a paid tool inside Jira. Not every company is paying for it, and it's not available for everyone, but it was even some time ago available just to try as beta. In Jira AI, you can get automated sprint planning if you're working in Scrum, of course, based on your backlog activity. And you even can get some anomaly detection to highlight tasks that taking longer than expected and than you predicted. You can generate some summaries, and as example, as I have a responsibility to do some statuses every 2 weeks, as example, for directors, I have to have these summaries generated and let other teams know what we are doing. Do we do it effectively? And what is happening overall? And of course, retrospectives for Scrum Masters. We have Scrum Masters here today as well, and they also would find it useful. So it's not just saving my time, it's also boosting strategic focus so that I can use for other projects or the same project to improve them. Another tool is Asana AI. Did you ever use Asana? Maybe for, please raise your hand. Yeah, thank you. Maybe even for your own project. This tool is, for some people, there's things that's very simple, but it's really intuitive tool. So you have intuitive AI, you can just do smart task prioritization using AI there. You can record tasks based on the urgency and dependencies. You can automate status updates and also get some summaries, same as in Jira AI. And balance your workload as well. So that's what is happening when you are moving from reactive chaos to proactive leadership. I want to tell you about a few more tools. I don't have a lot of time today for this speech, but I want to tell you about the tools that I am using as well in my work. As example, Actionable Agile. Did anyone use Actionable Agile? No, and it's actually available. It's a great tool that you can use in Jira. It helps you to predict, to answer some customers' more important question, when it will be done. It has Monte Carlo diagram, and probably some of you heard about Monte Carlo diagram, based on the epics that were closed before. How does it help? You can predict how long it will take to deliver some work in the future. Is it possible to use it always? No, because it's AI. It uses data. If it's a new team, you have no idea. If it's the team that was working on the similar project some time ago, you can do it. There is Notion AI. Notion, did you use Notion? Yeah, great. Yeah, Notion is a great tool, right? And it's constantly developing. You can use Notion AI for dynamic meeting notes, documentation, some wikis, huge opportunities there. Monday.com AI. Monday.com is a paid tool, right? So it's not every company is using it, but there are companies in Dublin who are using this tool as well for visual project roadmaps, for dynamic updates, and Smartsheet. Did you use Smartsheet AI? I am using Smartsheets. Great tool. It's kind of Excel, but with like Excel, you know, improved Excel 100 times. You can do a lot of things there. You can do some predictions, and it has now AI that is giving you insight into business and answers some ad hoc questions in that tool. And also has a lot of charts, metrics, so you can plan and actually see dependencies inside of this tool. So how to use this tool effectively? I would propose you to start small. Start with one thing, one task. Don't do everything with a new tool. Just start with some risk reporting or task updates or planning, one, not everything together. And remember that you need to use it as human support. So we are not trying to remove human from the cycle. We try to just support human to improve our decision based on data, not just replace with AI. And train your team to use this tool. It was a situation that I was on holidays for 1 month in India, and my team, because of the training, they were able to use Smartsheets without me, which is great because if you, I mean, Smartsheets as a tool is not a big thing, right? Everyone can use, but do you use it effectively? Can you give status updates using this tool? Can you be, instead of technical project manager, using the same tools? Yes, it's only a role that is helping you to deliver the project. And build AI into your workflow. That is important. You don't treat it as extra, but as a core important part of your job and what your team delivers. So here is what you gain when you use it, your AI tool, and you think how to use it softly. You have more time for strategic work. You're removing some things that you don't want to do, you don't like to do. You have helper. And less surprises, more confidence, better communications with stakeholder, and high-performing, less burnout teams, which in my view is the most important part. I am working here not for AI tools, processes, but for the people, for the team, and for customers. So for me, it's equally important that customers happy, and also the team, my team, is happy and less burned out than before working with me and with the tools that I am proposing. So AI doesn't make us less human. It frees us to be more human in our work. At least that's my approach towards it. And of course, we have challenges. AI isn't perfect because we need to remember AI is just a tool. It just uses different, so AI is not a tool, let's be clear. AI tools use different information, data. Everything is based on data. Which data you will feed into the tool, you will get that result, right? The result based on the data. So now you can see in Europe, we have different data laws, and data privacy matters. We need to think what data we are providing and given to this AI tool. We can't give everything, and that's why a lot of companies are not using some tools that are available on the market. And of course, it's hard to change. Some teams may resist new tools, which is okay. Change managing is always something that is not easy and requires some time. Yeah, so critical thinking must stay front and center when we are using automation, and we need to think about it. So that's what I can provide you as information. And I want to tell you that in our today world, right, we need to redefine possible. We need to make our project management not just faster, we make it smarter, we make it better, more human and more intentional, not randomly selecting the tool because it's now popular. And let's not wait for someone else to do it for us. We need to lead the change as managers, any managers, development managers, leads, anyone in the team can lead the change. And let's speak up in some conversations about AI adoption in the company. Because when women, because I am a woman, and it's entire talk, entire event is about also Women's Day, right? So when we lead the future of tech, we don't just manage the chaos, we redefine what is possible. Thank you.
We have a couple of minutes for questions while we wait for our next speaker that she joined there. So yeah, one question and then we'll go into the next talk. Hi, Artana.
Hi.
Give us 1 minute and we'll get to you, okay? Just share your screen. We'll answer one question and then we'll get to your talk, okay?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Yeah.
Hi, Sarvani.
Hello.
Thank you for your presentation. Sorry, as a data science student, I'm just curious about the IT project management. So I just want to ask you, how do you balance the results from AI automation with the human decision making in project?
It depends, of course, on the project and what kind of automation we are talking about. But of course, if we will be more like selective, right? If I will talk as example of about the smart sheets that I'm using, right? I can see some suggestions. And the same as I was mentioning here about, right? We need to use them, but we need to think. Not everything that we are getting from the tool, any tool, AI tool or any other tool, is something that we automatically applying. We need to think, analyze, and use our cognitive abilities to understand and identify based on data what is required to apply there, what will bring benefit, and what will be not useful for that current project. Usually data, of course, is the main core thing there. Whatever I will give to that tool will, of course, give me back the information based on the data, what can we do with it. And we need to have some specific example to identify. But for sure, always, that's why I'm saying human is still important there. Maybe it will be the times that we will not be so important, but at the moment we are. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We'll do more questions after, okay? Thank you. Thank you so much. Great, so our next talk is Archana. I think we can hear you, okay? Could you speak, please?
Yes.
Say hello.
Can you speak me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can we hear her okay? Or should I put the volume up? Oh, good? Good, good. Okay, perfect. You can go ahead, Archana. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carolina and the whole team there at GDG Dublin. I really want to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity. I couldn't be there in person because I didn't realize that I actually have maybe this is like a fun fact, but I have a Schengen visa and I didn't realize Dublin or Ireland doesn't come under Schengen anymore. So yeah, I really miss you folks, and I can't see a lot of you right now, but I am really glad if you did make it and make to this talk. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for being there. Yeah, so I can go ahead and get started, and I might be looking this way. It's just that my screen is here. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking about why AI first architecture could be our next big engineering crisis. And the idea behind the talk just came up over the last few months as I was, using several apps to like, obviously, like I think we have all done that. We all go to like, I guess, like different kinds of LLM providers and ask them to make apps now, right? And that's what I also did. Like I went through a lot of different, like I would say applications to try and make my own app. And then I realized that a lot of people are doing this in, in I guess like software engineering now is changing to where it is. And I have been also like, previously when I consulted companies or when I worked with companies, I used to realize that we constantly change how we use like LLMs. But now there's a whole new change coming because we are now coding with AI and coding with LLMs. And this talk is somehow like a bit of like an opinionated piece, but the hope here is that you would realize like, what exactly is happening to software engineering as a whole and what we can do to actually integrate LLMs in the right way. And also like in some ways I am hoping to, spread awareness and in some ways like ring the bell as to what is really happening. And I know I can't be there in person. So what I did actually was create like a Mentimeter quiz. The idea behind the quiz is that I can at least still see your replies or any, you are more engaged with the presentation as well, because sometimes what happens is I since I can't see you, I really like, I'll keep talking. So my hope is that you can log into Mentimeter, and this is the QR code. You can use your cameras or your phone cameras to scan it, and then you can log into the quiz as well. Awesome. I hope it is okay over here. I can wait maybe another minute so that everyone can scan. Awesome. Okay. So let me get started. So as I said, hi, I'm Archana. I worked as an AI engineer for close to like 5 years. So I really started pre-GPT time to start working with AI engineering and being a person that worked with, I guess, like LLMs. So way back then, we used to work with deep learning, as it was called. And I used to also work with NLP. So that's really how I got started with AI. And then I worked with different companies. I worked with Continental, I worked with DHL. And I think somewhere in me, I always wanted to do community work. And I always thought there is bigger ways to, utilize AI, but most importantly, spread awareness of what is to come and actually help the community out there. So I shifted my career and I moved into more community facing roles. So I was at Women Who Code full time for around 2 to 3 years, where I helped to build like the community products that help to take in almost like 350,000 folks worldwide in 147 countries or networks. And currently, and then I shifted, as you know, Women Who Code shut down last year. So I shifted towards Apart Research. And Apart Research also works with communities, and we do hackathons on AI safety. So feel free to check us out. And I work as a community program manager at Apart. Awesome. So this is a bit of introduction about me, and let me jump right on to the topic. So I am starting off with a question, but the hope is that you folks can also, get interested in the topic, which I know is around system engineering, so might be a bit on the boring side. And so I've just put quizzes in between. So so the question here is, your company needs to implement like a sophisticated booking system for a cruise line that handles multiple ships, cabin types, customer profiles, and payment processing. Which approach below best represents how you would handle this in a traditional software architecture? It does, even if you don't have a background, the questions are very straightforward, so don't worry. So first is hire a team of 30 developers to simultaneously code all features and then integrate at the end. start coding immediately based on the rough outline, adjust as customer feedback arrives? Or is it follow a sequential process of requirements, requirement gathering, architecture design, component design, implementation, testing, and deployment? Or is it purchase an AI code generator and have it build the system in one go? So this is the question, and you can feel free to answer it here. And I can see your responses a bit, but please, again, don't worry, it's anonymous. I don't know who is, answering the question. So it's just supposed to be very fun. Yeah, awesome. So I see a lot of people choosing C already. Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, as most of you selected C, you're right. That's exactly how you would do it in a traditional, I guess, software engineering architecture. First, you would oftentimes have like requirement gathering and analysis. So you identify like the business there's an identification for it, and then like user requirements, system requirements, some kind of feasibility studies. And then you have the architectural design where you understand like high level how the system works, if there are certain components that are needed, technology, stack, etc. And then you come up with like a detailed design. Okay, like this is the component level design. This is like the data structure, interface design, and error handling strategy. And similarly, after that, you would go into implementation, maybe writing codes for different design documents or different parts, and making sure that you actually implement unit tests and code reviews. And then I guess one of the major components is testing. So unit testing, system testing, performance testing, security testing. And then there's deployment, like actually taking it and deploying it out there with like a monitoring setup. And then you would do maintenance and evolution, which is basically bug fixes. Okay, can we do some feature enhancement, security updates, and so on. And now imagine like I'm trying to shift your thinking a bit. Like, what do you think this would be if it was approached in an AI first architecture manner, right? So let us say your product manager wants to add like a recommendation engine to your e-commerce platform that suggests products based on browsing history, purchase patterns, and seasonal trends. So which of these would best represent how you would approach this in an AI first architectural manner? So A, would you use like traditional waterfall based approach with AI tools to accelerate coding? B, would you actually put an AI system at the center of the cyclic process where it generates? C, replace all human developers with AI and eliminate the design phase entirely? Or D, is it generate the entire code base at once using AI and then deploy without testing? So yeah, feel free to add your answers here. So the thought is that, oh, can we think about it in a different manner, right? Like what happens now that AI gets into the software architecture? Where do you think you insert it? And where do you think it actually makes changes happen? I'm so glad no one picked up C because yeah, you don't want to be replacing human developers with AI. Or someone did, but we shouldn't be replacing human developers with AI, hopefully. And yeah, I'm glad like a lot of people are thinking A and B and putting those ideas there. Thank you. So yeah, let me go ahead. So actually the answer was B over here because you want to put AI system at the center of the cyclic process, but like also use AI to accelerate coding. And so yeah, over here we have like different AI software engineering architecture changes that will happen. And at least like these are things that I also think is happening or like I can see it happen as I consult different companies. And so this is like all the thoughts that I've put together. And again, like feel free to let me know if you feel like, oh no, this is something that needs to be changed or this feels like not something that I relate to. And that's completely fine as well. This field is evolving a lot and there's a lot of changes happening. So we will look at it at a different lens in even a few months from now, right? So firstly, like requirements co-creation, this is where I see also AI like having a huge role where it works with human stakeholders to actually generate requirements and validate requirements and suggest alternatives. And there's this architectural exploration. So AI generates multiple architectural options. It validates architectural decisions and implementation as well, because AI generates like codes, which we are doing to a certain extent already. Developers review, refine the code, and then AI assists with code reviews and suggest improvements. And towards the end of the towards the end of the entire design or the architectural pipeline, what happens is this AI generate tests and identifies edge cases, They also like develop validated AI generated tests and fix any identified issues. Then there's adaptive deployment. So like it generates deployment configurations. It helps you to monitor. And also AI will continuously analyze the system for improvement and maybe suggest refactoring, and teams sort of evaluate and implement AIs based on AI suggestions, right? So this is what it should ideally look like AI and like in some ways engineers like coexisting together in different parts of the pipeline. And yeah, so now we come towards like, where do we think AI will likely cause failures? And like I will talk about places where it will cause failures and then talk about actual use cases. So another fun fact is today, like I follow this person called Gurgly, who writes amazing articles and has an amazing newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you should go check his newsletter out. And like coincidentally, today he talked about how AI engineering is changing, and he added a lot of good examples, which I have quoted here. So that's what I'll be talking about next, and talking about where AI failures can really occur, right? So this question is about like, okay, like thinking about where AI could possibly fail. So let us say a major retailer has adopted an AI first architecture for the event management system. 3 months after deployment, they discover the system occasionally processes returns incorrectly, causing customer complaints and inventory discrepancies. At which stage of the AI first development process did the failure most likely originate? A, did it happen in requirement co-creation? So let us say AI misunderstood the business rules. B, did the implementation collaboration, AI maybe generated code which with like logical errors. C, is the continuous verification, AI generated tests failing to sort of catch edge cases. And D, is it proactive evolution, AI made some unauthorized changes to the system? So again, like, you know, as we like sort of reply to the answers here, just do realize, like, don't worry if like a lot of different answers are right at this particular point, right? Like we know for a fact that AI will cause a lot of errors in different steps in the software engineering architecture. And the fact that we recognize that is really great, and it will set the principle of how we develop these systems in the future, right? And so, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, amazing replies and amazing answers. And yeah, so the answer is C, which is what most of you picked up, which is great. So the issue likely stems, and again, this is coming from experience, by inadequate testing. AI can generate like, you know, comprehensive test suite and may miss unusual edge cases in complex business processes like returns. Without human oversight, specifically focusing on test coverage and validation, these gaps will persist into production. So that is one area that it could have most likely failed, right? And so, yeah, so what does it really look like when I talk about the entire AI or like the software engineering pipeline and AI coexisting with that? Where do I think failures will occur? So firstly, it's like requirements co-creation. Again, it could be like the AI hallucinated certain aspects and created that. And then it also could be an architectural exploration, like pattern misapplication, right? Maybe AI suggested inappropriate architectural patterns. And we can also see logic errors, like maybe AI generated codes with subtle logical flaws that possibly didn't get picked. And maybe AI, as we noticed, failed to test critical edge cases. Or is it AI making inefficient deployment decision? And the last one is pretty interesting because I think it happens all the time. And AI sort of suggesting changes that causes issues in the long run, right? So that's the whole kind of pipeline and where I think problems occur. And now coming to one more question around like security vulnerabilities, because I feel like that is something we don't think about often, is that AI can actually do code injections that can cause security vulnerabilities. So where do we think security vulnerabilities can occur? So let us say your team use AI to generate like an authentication system for a healthcare application. During a routine security audit, a serious vulnerability is discovered that could expose patient data. Was it a deliberately malicious backdoors inserted by AI, or do you think it use some outdated security practices copied from training data? Or is there a complete absence of any security or like authentication checks? Or is it encryption algorithms are too strong and they sort of slow the process down? So which do you think is likely to occur? And again, like, don't worry if your answer isn't right, because all of these keep changing as new models keep coming, and we're going to keep coming across a lot of different issues throughout the pipeline of a software engineering architecture as such. But yeah, it's really great. I feel like the audience knows a lot, which is amazing. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The answer is B. So AI code generators, and this is something we'll come across often, is like they're trained on vast repositories of code, including older code that may follow outdated security practices. And the AI might actually generate authentication code that uses deprecated hashing algorithms or like uses improper session management and so on. So whenever you look at your code, you would always come across it using things that were used like maybe 5+ years ago, right? Or some kind of patterns that are present in older code. And that's because it's been trained on that, and which is why it is causing such security vulnerabilities to come. So yeah, this is a very interesting part because we're going to talk about a few use cases that Gergely mentioned literally today. So I'm going to talk about 2 use cases and then give like 2 fun quizzes, like one of which will again like talk about what we already identified here. So first one he talked about was Ross from Wordsmith. He identified this as the biggest challenge was sort of developers transitioning into AI work. Unlike traditional software with predictable outcomes, AI systems produce varying results for the same input. So that is one of the things that they came across, and they were like, yeah, AI has non-deterministic outputs. So the solution that was sort of taken by that company was to develop like robust evaluation frameworks to assess AI output quality, implement domain-specific quality metrics rather than relying on generic metrics or whatever AI generated, build system that improve it through feedbacks loop as seen in other chatbot implementation, and create like a approved answers knowledge base where deterministic responses are required. So this really helped them because in the case of Wordsmith, they were like going into a space where the AI was just generating, or it might generate varying results for the same particular input. Yeah, so this was actually like a part of, I don't know if we talked about it before, but yeah, AI suggesting like inappropriate architectural patterns. So considering that, there is another example, which is very nice. So this particular company talked about over-engineering AI solutions. So this case study is out of DSI, which is Data Solutions International, and they show how AI vendors often propose unnecessarily complex architecture. So the agency they talked to sort of proposed a solution that would take 6 to 9 months and cost way more than DSI's entire infrastructure investment. So what did DSI actually realize? Is that they realized they need to start with simpler implementation that solve the core problem. And they sort of built like in-house expertise, which is really good. I feel like not what a lot of companies are doing right now. They're outsourcing a lot of like what could be done generative AI applications or like building these applications without actually upskilling their own developers. And I think like that can actually help in the long run as well. And they also use prototype solutions before committing to a complex architecture, and they focused on business requirements rather than implementing all possible AI capabilities. So yeah, considering this, let's talk about 2 fun quizzes because I know I've been talking for some time. So let us say your team is building an AI application that needs to perform various types of tasks. Let us say code generation, summarization, real-time content generation. You're debating whether to standardize on a single AI model or use specialized multiple models. So what would you do? Would you use a single powerful model like GPT-4 to, for all tasks to simplify integration and maintenance? Would you build separate application for each type with different specialized models? C, create an abstraction layer that allows using different AI models optimized for each specific task, or D, outsource each AI capability to specialized third-party vendors. And again, like, you don't need to have the perfect answer here. What I'm giving you is like, okay, this is what happened, right? This is what happened with a few companies, and this is how they approached it. And maybe this will help when the same situation comes up at work or comes at another place that you might work. And that's what I'm hoping out of the talk, is that we have awareness now that it's happening with other companies, and we look at software engineering with a different lens. And so, yeah, you're right. So I guess a lot of people chose C, which is also right. But I, for example, also think it's about making sure that you choose specialized models. So in this particular article that Gergely mentioned, he mentioned like 2 companies. Wordsmith was one. There's also someone called Incident.io. Something we've realized working in this field of LLMs and AI and deep learning for a long time is that AI models that are there right now, LLMs, they're too generic, right? It's better to have specialized model for specialized tasks. And I think like that approach really helps in the long term, and it might just change the perspective altogether, because everyone just wants to slap a API over their product and make it work. And this is a completely different approach. But the idea is that because we have a different approach to go behind specialized models, we can actually make sure that these systems work well in the future as well, because they've been taught specialized, I guess, like knowledge, and they work on a specialized domain altogether. So this is one of the approaches that was taken. And then again, the answer most of you chose C is also right. But B in this particular situation is what a few companies noticed helped. And yeah, so there's one more question before I move towards the last part, which is like your mid-sized company wants to implement an AI feature to sort of summarize customer support tickets. So this is, I think, happens a lot. A specialized AI vendor has proposed a complex architecture involving multiple databases, several machine learning frameworks, a dedicated Kubernetes cluster, and specialized GPU instances. They estimate implementation will take 7 months and 250,000 plus ongoing operational costs. So what would be the most prudent approach? First, to accept the proposal since AI requires specialized expertise your team doesn't have. B, build applications for, I think I copied this from the last, but okay, let me just go towards the answer. My bad. I'm sorry about that. One sec. Yeah. So 1 second. My bad. Yeah, so this is the one. Okay. Hope you can see it. So yeah, so is it first like accept the proposal since AI requires specialized expertise your team doesn't have? B, start with a simple prototype using managed AI services before committing to a complex architecture? Or it's C, hire additional AI engineers to build the system internally from scratch? Or D, abandon the AI feature since it's too complex and expensive? I think everyone already has the answer, yeah. So you start out with a simple prototype that uses some kind of AI services before committing to something complex. Because even though it might look like AI has the answer for everything, we know for a fact that we actually, when we go into implementing this, it fails very quickly. Okay. I think there's something that is a bit missing here, which is my bad. I'll just grab it from my Canva. I'm just going to switch a bit. So sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So let me go back to my Mentimeter. Okay. Okay. So the next concept I really want to talk about really quickly is basically open source libraries, which are sort of under threat from AI. I've been working with open source libraries for some time. I personally am also part of Python Software Foundation as a fellow. And I have been noticing this trend coming on really quick, is that certain open source libraries are under threat because now we are replacing them with just prompting GPT-4. or like GPT or like any other, LLM provider. So this last part, I want to quickly talk about what do I think, like which kind of OSS libraries are under threat and where do I think we still need to be champions for open source. So that is also a vital part of what software engineering is going to be, or the architecture, or how it's going to change in the future. So this particular question is around which category of open source software is sort of most vulnerable to being replaced by LLMs and why? So which do you think is the most vulnerable? Is it A, like code computational libraries like NumPy and Pandas? Is it B, hardware interfaces like PyTorch and TensorFlow? Is it C, interface and convenience libraries like string formatters? Or is it D, is it security critical libraries like crypto and authentication? So feel free to let us know, let me know, what do you think will actually be replaced by LLMs and why? Yeah, so most of you actually have the right answer. I'm going to quickly move ahead. But yeah, so the correct answer is actually C. So actually interface and convenience libraries face the biggest threat because LLMs sort of are excel at generating boilerplate and repetitive code patterns. And they also, the values of these libraries are primarily in abstraction and not optimized implementation. So one example here I have is something called Slugify, which is this Python library, which does this simple thing, which is used to sort of take a string and like convert strings into URL friendly slugs, right? So let us say you have a string that says for a website, it might just convert it into some URL friendly slugs. So previously you would just call this Python package and it would help you to convert it into slug, right? And also making sure that it has hyphens, it has lowercase and so on. But now you would just prompt, GPT or prompt Claude. So I just added like a implementation here that you just go ahead and you just write a prompt and tell it, oh, like, you know what, remove the spaces to hyphens, remove special characters, ensure everything is lowercase and blah, blah. So now you don't really need to use this particular open source library anymore, right? And obviously, you're going to see a reduction in people using this library because everyone is just going to prompt GPT or Claude. And yeah, so I think a lot of Python libraries are vulnerable to LLM replacement, like string manipulation libraries, data formatting libraries, and simple web and API utilities. And we need to realize that these are being constantly replaced by LLMs and prompting LLMs in the software engineering pipeline. So ideally, a lot of engineers would actually use like these Python libraries to make sure it's robust and make sure, it's being used in different parts of the pipeline, but now it's all being replaced by LLMs. And yeah, so which is why I think there are various ways in which we can tackle it. And I am gonna ask firstly, which do you think is the best way to tackle it? So let us say your company announces a new policy, like we are moving away from small open source libraries for text processing, and then we will use GPT-4 subscription instead and generate these functions as needed. And this will sort of reduce our dependency management overhead. What are the key considerations should be raised about this policy long-term impact on software development ecosystem? So first is the policy will significantly improve developer productivity, or will the policy ignore the symbiotic relationship between companies and open source software, potentially undermining the foundation that commercial AI relies on? Or C, is it policy's main flaw is that generated code might have licensing issues, or the only problem with this approach is that it could increase cloud costs? So yeah, so what do you think the answer is here? And again, a bit quickly, because I know I'm coming very close to time. But yeah, so what are the key considerations that should be raised about this policy's long-term impact on software development ecosystem? So you are right. So I think it is B, we at the end of the day, we want to preserve open source system even in the even in the age of AI. No matter if you are at your company, I feel like there are various approaches you can take. Firstly, like a hybrid approach to using these libraries, having the education and awareness within your companies to make sure that they can use OSS sustainably. And also conduct an OSS inventory test, figure out, oh, which components are actually dependent on OSS. And I think it's very much necessary that we preserve what open source softwares are to the entire, I guess, human knowledge and software development, and not have it replaced by AI in the long term. Yeah. So one last thing that I want to quickly talk about as I close this is, it's great that we think that we can replace open source software with AI. But one of the things that we don't realize right now is open source softwares were actually free, right? But you using AI at the end of the day is actually does require cost. And GPT-4 right now, even though it seems to be really cheap, actually is much more expensive. So I'm going to skip over this question and quickly go into this pricing paradox in AI architecture. So what it states is that architectural dependencies are sticky. So once, let us say your entire system was built around these AI services and they change the price all of a sudden, you can't change providers. It'll basically cause a lot of issues because different parts of your pipeline are dependent. Maybe you thought, okay, I don't want to take an open source software. I will just prompt GPT and ask it to remove certain characters from a string. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is, let us say GPT increase their prices overnight, then your entire architecture's prices become increase. But most importantly, how would you go back into the code and replace all those prompts with, with those open source libraries again, right? And there's also integration, like complexity compounds with switching costs. Like, as I said, you need to switch costs for a lot of things. So it's gonna actually increase your cost overall. And there's also the fact that all the dependencies in architectures have a lock-in, right? So let us say one particular application was dependent on another application. So it's going to cascade into a whole big failure. So I think what it makes us realize is these architectures, and as we develop it, and I just talked about 2 or 3 major aspects here of what happens when you don't have these architectures that are dependent on AI, is that you're moving towards a very much of a failure mode happening, and without something to actually have a way to back up on, or a way to fall back on. So I think as we move forward, we'll have to think about architectures differently, but most importantly still champion for open source work, and make sure to realize that even though these AI systems might seem cheap right now, they will quickly increase in prices. And when they do, we will actually have software engineering system that is bound to fail. And yeah, I'm sorry, the talk is not very positive, but I'm hoping to raise awareness and actually get to people who are developers and engineers or managers themselves. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for listening. And yeah, feel free to ask me questions now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I went 4 minutes over time.
It's no problem. If you want to stop sharing so we can see your full screen.
Yeah, sure, no worries. I can go back to the slides as well, so feel free to.
Let me actually, then I'll tell you, where is this? There we go. We have you full screen there.
Sure, no worries, yeah.
Excuse me, only for to ask you, my name is Leah. I would like to ask you, what's the enveloping, in your position for your career is very important, for the skills, for start, because I understand everything you tell me, but my question for you, how you start, properly well, what you properly advise, Thank you.
Yeah, I think even as that's a great question. So I think the question basically asks how do you make sure you have this right kind of skills as these software engineering architectures developed to use AI in the long term? I think it's making sure that you still learn coding the right way, no matter what. It might seem oh yeah, you have this assistant to help you at every point, but what we don't realize is these AI assistants have higher hallucination and will have more issues in the long term. And so this means that our concepts and our idea, or how we learn coding, still has to be very much fundamental, so that when these systems fail, we're able to spot it and help it out. So I think the learning still needs to be the same and not too dependent on how AI assistants help us. And mostly I feel software engineering right now is also about, oh, where did this particular LLM or this particular AI right, which part of the code was written wrong, which means you will have to dig into a lot of code base and find out where exactly it didn't execute, or where could the problem be coming from.
Hi. Thank you for the amazing presentation. My question is that since you are working in AI for 5 years so far, so do you think that AI will acquire a lot of the development, or like will it be, the AI will come to an extent at some point?
Yeah, so I think like there is a lot of like question. That's why like I work with AI safety. So that's a great question because where is this going? And I think like maybe like this would be a call out to talk about like also like venture and look into the AI safety field. So right now AI safety is also constantly evolving. It talks about where these models should go in the long term. Like what are the timelines, right? Like do we actually want like model development to be close to where human values are? So I think all sorts of questions are there, to be honest, about where AI development is going, and there's not a great proper answer. I would say like it falls on a lot of companies that are generating these LLMs, and it falls on them to make sure that it's actually done in a safe manner, right? And you just don't go and build the next big model without making sure there's enough guardrails present in the last model, and make sure that the development actually has guardrails in place. Yeah.
Do we have maybe a last question
I
somewhere?
think someone wanted to ask to Lana, if I'm not wrong.
We do have one.
Yeah,
Great.
so Lana, come back in here. Thank you so much, Archana, for your time. If you want to hang around for a little bit, that would be great. If not, thank you so much.
Actually, we have
Have another one. Oh,
question
sorry,
here.
sorry.
Yes.
They were there at the back. I don't think you can see
Hi, my name is
them.
Paul. I'm just wondering, when you were looking at why those libraries shouldn't be replaced, do you wouldn't think that maybe this quality of code, both for humans reading it and for other AIs reading it, especially if you need to move provider, might deteriorate if we just use LLMs the whole time?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't like, what is the question? Like,
Oh,
should
sorry.
we?
That the quality of code, that the code will get more verbose and might degrade in quality if we're just using LLMs instead of where you have a one-liner from existing library.
Yeah, I think you are right. Like in that way, like, yeah, the code will tend to deteriorate. And I think a lot of what people are doing right now is prompting, right? Like what you're essentially doing is just prompt engineering these LLMs to do certain tasks that these libraries were doing in the past, right? And it's basically an act of like what this is, prompt and pray, right? Like you prompt and you hope that it turns out well. And once the system fails, you will go and try to fix the prompt, which I don't think fixes the issue in large, because these models are very general purpose and they will always have room to hallucinate. And because you prompted them, you just hope they give you the right answer, and that doesn't mean they'll be right every time. So that is why I believe it's better to use like open source libraries in the long term.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, yeah, if you want to come in, I think someone had a question for you, Svetlana. Yes. Great.
So the question was,
Just a very quick one on AI and project management. Project management, risk management, and AI tools. What have you used?
Based on the risk, what kind of risks you are talking about? First of all, let's
Project risks for a reasonably sized project, where you typically have between 12 and 20 risks if you were to manually generate them.
Right. I would say that at the moment in current company, we are not using any specific tool for the risks. And it's actually based on the situations that I was talking about, right? You can't give too much data. And currently in the company, we need to identify what kind of tool will we be allowed to use to give the data to manage such risks. So for risks, really, I am not using much tools currently. So that I have to be honest, sir. Do you use any tools? Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. As soon as a tool is approved in the company, then it's much easier. But not, not every company is ready to be able to use based on the compliance issues, and that's very important part specifically. I would say in Europe as well, but also in US. And if the company is connected to US, you probably know that's a big concern to use any AI tool for such data. Thank you very much for your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. We need to be here in about 5 minutes. And I had a last minute slide that I added later. Someone asked me, we usually do GDG events. Let me change this. There we go. About once a quarter in person, and then we do them online. But if anyone wants, we do the Code events every month. So I left the link there. That's our website. So just go take a look in case you want to join us. We have a workshop happening on the 8th of April with someone from Couchbase. So, if you want to have a little bit more like a hands-on experience, you can sign up on Meetup. Yeah, thank you very much. This is our GDG page. If you are not a member yet, you can sign up, and anytime we publish an event, you will get an email, so then you know what's happening. And again, add any of us on LinkedIn. I post a lot, and if you have questions, if you need anything, feel free to message me or anyone in here. And again, I'll put this in here in case anyone wants a job. Just find me later, and I will refer you. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I hope you had a good time, and I hope I'll see you on the next one. Sorry, everyone. Just hold on a second. We'll take a quick picture before you all go. Yep, perfect. But really quick, really quick, really quick. Yeah, really quick, please, and then you can go home. Yes. Yeah, really quick, everyone. If you want to be in the picture. Why? Oh, well, that's fine. Well, we have that up there anyway. Okay. Squeeze. And go down, 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 then down, please. Come in, come in. Last orders.
Remember, if you're not in the photo, you did not attend.
Correct.
So everyone has to be really still, or else they're all going to look really fucking weird. Take a quick video, so let's pretend you're laughing or something. Do it long.